All right, so Romeo and Juliet, Act 5, Scenes 1 and 2. We have a whole mess. Things are starting to fall apart because of a lack of good communication and good planning, because Romeo is kind of a dummy, and because people are making plans that don't make any sense, in my opinion. Maybe you think it's a good plan. Who am I to tell you you're wrong? So in Scene 1 of Act 5, we have Balthasar, who was Romeo's loyal servant, showing up to his home in Mantua, where he's been cut off from the rest of the world. He's been staying here since his banishment in Mantua, just awaiting news about what's going on in Verona, when he can see Juliet again, etc., etc. And he sees Balthasar and he welcomes him. He says, "Tell me some good news. Tell me everything's well. That's all I need to hear right now. All I care about is my love, my Juliet." Earlier, when he's giving a soliloquy at the very beginning of the scene, we hear him talking to himself about how he had a dream that Juliet was dead, and that he was dead, and then they kissed, and then he was brought back to life. Again, foreshadowing, a little bit of irony there, because we as the audience know that they die. So Shakespeare's kind of messing with us by having them have all these dreams and these images. Remember previously in Act 3 when Juliet was looking down at Romeo from her balcony and made that comment about how he looked like he was in a tomb. And now we see Romeo doing a similar thing where he's talking about himself being dead and Juliet's kiss giving him life. So there's talking a lot about death. And that's supposed to be ironic and some foreshadowing for what's to come, basically. So Romeo's having these internal thoughts. Balthasar shows up. Balthasar tells him that Juliet is dead and that he has no other word to bring to him. So we don't know yet why Friar Laurence hasn't been able to get information to Romeo about what's going on with Juliet. We find that out in Scene 2, but we know that Romeo has not heard yet about Friar Laurence's plan. He doesn't know that Juliet's not actually dead. He doesn't know that she kind of drank a potion that just put her under for a while and that she's going to wake up and be fine. We don't know this whole plan. Romeo is completely in the dark. He's unaware of this. He thinks Juliet is actually dead. So he is devastated. He's really broken up, and he decides that he's going to go to Verona, to the Capulet tomb, to be with her, and that he is there going to kill himself. That's his whole plan. So Romeo leaves Balthasar, and he starts heading toward Verona, and on the way there he passes an apothecary who he knows is really poor, who kind of has a reputation around Mantua of being kind of shady and of having access to a lot of poisons. So he goes and he buys poison from this apothecary. He basically says, "Listen, I need this. I need to die. I need some really strong poison. What do you got?" And the apothecary gives him some really strong stuff. He says, "Listen, even if you had the strength of 20 men, this would kill you." So Romeo says, "Great, here's some money." And then he goes on this whole spiel about how money is the actual poison in this world and wealth is the root of evil and all this kind of stuff. And so he says, "You're not the one giving me poison. I'm giving you poison by giving you money." And the apothecary is like, "Okay, sure, guy." And then Romeo leaves with his poison. He's heading to Verona. He's ready to go to the Capulet tomb, be where Juliet is buried, and kill himself. That's his plan. He wants to go be with his love and die next to her. So he's off. Then we switch to Act 5, Scene 2, where we have Friar Laurence running into his friend Friar John, who was supposed to go to Mantua, we find out in this scene, and give Romeo the letter talking about Friar Laurence and Juliet's plan, telling Romeo that Juliet's not actually dead, telling him about how to meet up with her so they can run away together and live happily ever after in Mantua. And we find out that that's why Romeo never got the letter, because Friar John ended up being stuck in quarantine, which is funny because we're all in quarantine right now. And so we find out through this scene that because Friar John wasn't allowed to leave Verona, because city health officials thought that he was really ill and they wanted to quarantine him, because of this, Romeo never got the letter. Romeo doesn't know that Juliet is actually still alive, and now Friar Laurence is very stressed. So he decides that he's going to go talk to Romeo and get this all sorted out, but first he needs to go to the Capulet tomb and make sure that there's someone there when Juliet wakes up so she doesn't feel trapped. So, to recap, in Scenes 1 and 2, Romeo finds out from Balthasar that Juliet is dead. He thinks that she is actually dead. He doesn't know that it's kind of a trick because of the drink that she drank, okay? He gets some poison. He makes a plan to go to Verona himself, to go to the Capulet tomb, lay next to Juliet, and kill himself so that he's with her when he dies, okay? Meanwhile, Friar Laurence finds out that Friar John wasn't able to deliver the message to Romeo, telling Romeo that Juliet's not actually dead. So Friar Laurence realizes that Romeo doesn't know the truth. So he decides first he's going to go be there when Juliet wakes up. So he's going to head to the Capulet family tomb as well. Then he decides once Juliet's awake, then they're going to go down to Mantua and just meet up with Romeo there. So a lot of miscommunication going on. It's a big mess, and it only gets worse. So that's kind of what's happening, and that leads us up to the very last scene of the entire play, Act 5, Scene 3, which you will read tomorrow, and I'll post a recap video tomorrow. Then tomorrow you will have comprehension questions for all of Act 5, and then Friday, once again, you're gonna have your final test, and you'll have 1 week to log in at some point and take that test. It'll be a Google form test. So if you have any questions, if you need more in-depth explanation about what's going on with Act 5, Scenes 1 and 2, please let me know. Again, my video instruction is supposed to be supplemental. I'm still expecting that you read it. So any gaps that I leave here would be filled in by reading it yourself in No Fear Shakespeare. So make sure you're also reading No Fear Shakespeare, watching my videos, and if you need to, watching the supplemental stuff that I'm gonna post, just so that you have a really comprehensive understanding of what's going on. So let me know if you need anything. Love and miss you guys. Have a happy Wednesday.